All right, let's get this timing chain on. Pop this off. There we go. Put that right down right there. Get that nut off. Pop the little guide off. Clean it real quick. Does need to be perfect, but just get any debris out of here. While we're doing this, might as well clean up the gasket surface as well. Got a new gasket for it, so. Timing chain. Got the new one right here. They're not directional, so just slip this thing right in. Fall down like that for a second. Make sure this is tight in here though. You do have to put a little bit of thread locker on this. Yep. Make sure this is on this locating pin right here. Part of the case. Just start to hand thread this in here. Torque's like 7 foot-pounds on that, so it doesn't need to be very tight. Okay. Now we can put the flywheel back on. You want to make sure you get your Woodruff key, so you didn't lose this. Put that right there. Okay. And then your actual flywheel. Just line up the Woodruff key and then put that thing right in there. Throw some thread locker on these nuts right here. And for right now, we can just zap it down, but we are going to torque this. When you're doing this too, you want to make sure this timing chain does not get all bound up in there. You're trying to torque it. Okay, now let's look at the torque spec on that. 59 foot-pounds. All right. Okay, there we go. Okay. So why I have cardboard in here is because on this flywheel, they don't really give you any good areas to actually put this into, and so that you can lock it. Usually on a few other bikes, you know, they'll actually have like an area for these to go into. This doesn't, so it just has these holes. Wouldn't like to. So we're going to torque this nuts to 59 foot-pounds. Your flywheel holder, and then just hold it as you can torque this down. It's a pretty tight torque. Okay, so I'm happy with this now. It seems to be good. Now, get in here and looks pretty clean anyways. But okay, I'm just going to keep this dowel pin in there, but just make sure you do have both and they're in the right spot. And we can just want to set that down there just like that. Of course, this is magnetic, so it's going to want to kind of jump on you. Tap it real good. Okay, we're good. Now we can bolt this thing up. Here, and I usually just go a little bit with the impact until they're tight, right? So crisscross pattern. Just a little bit. I'm on the #1 torque setting on this, so it will actually, the drill will stop like it is right there. It won't go past. And you can come over here and kind of just, you know, get a nice feel with them bottoming out in there and being tight all the way. Okay, we're good. It's all set. You can actually know where you're actually supposed to have these clips by that gray tape. Kind of something cool that Cowie does. That's a good time just to pop this chain up. Let it rest right there. Want to make sure your crank, which mine already is, at TDC pretty much all the way. exactly a TDC. Actually clean in here too, just a little bit, just to make sure she's all nice and clean. Make sure she's all nice and clean. Okay, now it's time to start to get ready to install the piston. Want to make sure you put some rags down there in the bottom end. Here's the new piston. Has a circle right there, a little punch mark. That always goes towards your exhaust side. So that will go like that on the motor. Make sure you do that right. You can also just go by the valve cutouts on this. Bigger valves, intake valves, smaller ones are exhaust. So put those right there. We're going to install these. Actually, we're going to put the C-clips in first. What you want to do here, you do not want to bend these. Okay, so when you install these, this is why you do not use pliers, because you can bend these and then they're going to more of a chance of them actually popping out while the motor is running. So you want to kind of just try to like finagle them in. You can kind of go like, you can push them in together. You just don't want to bend them like that. Okay, another trick to install these before it's actually on the crankshaft is I actually take the new wrist pin out and I will insert this into the piston because if you were to try to put those in without this in there, it's very easy to have them go too far in or get cocked sideways like that. So if you can hold this in there with your finger while you're trying to get the C-clip in, it'll be a lot easier. I'll try to do this. Try to just pop those in just like that. That went in very easily. Usually they don't. So when you're looking in here, right, this opening right there on it, okay, you don't want it there. The reason being, technically, you know, it probably won't happen, but it's a possibility that it could. When this is going up and down, the forces will actually compress that right there, and then this will actually pop out inside your motor, and that'll just destroy it. So you just want to make sure that doesn't happen. So once you set this in here, this is also a good way to actually make sure that it is in its groove and it's not just kind of like floating out. You can kind of get in here and then you can actually move this. So I usually like keeping them that hole pointing upwards. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to move this C-clip until that opening is facing upwards. Just like that. So you can see here, that opening is facing like that. And also when you're putting these in, you gotta, you just want to be careful not to nick any of the aluminum. And if you did just get a little nick, make sure you actually remove the piece of aluminum that might have come off so it's not floating in here. Pin back out. Set that right there. Okay. Actually, I'm going to clean this out real quick. I think I did see a little flake. This little groove on the inside here, you can see it. My pick's going inside of it. That's not where this sits. Now, this is actually the first piston that I've seen that has that. What that is an oil groove. Okay. So don't mistake that as to where this is going to go. This C-clip is going in this first groove right there, not on the inside. That's just oil for oil. Your rings. Okay, so you're going to install your oil ring right here. So the correct term for this is actually your oil control ring. That's what this is. And you want to make sure that this isn't overlapping like that. It's not what you want. You want this to be, I have to use a pick to let me do this, but you want this to be next to it. So it's almost like a spring. If that makes any sense. You can see right there, you can probably barely see it on camera. Actually, let's get in the light. That's where they meet. That's what you want. Right there. Okay. So now, I'm going to take our scraper rings, that's what they're called, and you're going to want to take notice to where these rings actually meet. Then we're going to take this, okay? You want to roughly put these at 180 degrees apart from each other. So you want to get this on, and you want to get it, the first one on in this bottom groove. These are very flexible rings. I'll just try to almost walk it over the, there we go. You want to walk it over the piston and get it in the bottom of this control ring. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to do the same to the top one. You're going to put this roughly 180 degrees apart. And you want to get this in that top groove. And again, you can just walk it right across, just like that. You can see they're about 180 degrees apart. That's where the two scrapers are. So you can see one's right there, one's right there. That's what you want. And then again, visually inspect that where the oil control ring meets, which is right there, has not come apart or has got jammed up or something. And this should freely spin like that, which it does. So we're good. We're gonna put the dowels in down here. Okay, now we're ready for your base gasket. Come over here. And we can just sit this right down there, just like that. So your base gasket's in place. Just want to make sure there's no fiber in there from the paper towel. I just like this Maxima stuff, seems to work pretty good. You can oil or lube up your wrist pin. And then you can also put a little bit on the inside here. Okay, doesn't need a lot, just a little bit. Right over on this side. Start the pin in it. It's a very tight fit, so take note of that. And then you can just push this thing all the way through so it bottoms out. Okay. The fun part of this whole thing, this is what you should be looking forward to doing, is putting the last C-clip in on this side. And since this is a 4-stroke, this thing sits like a few millimeters up from the actual bottom of the the top of the cases. There's like no room to get in there. So you want to make sure that you do have towels down there, or something blocking this off, so that if you were to drop this, which is highly likely given that there's like no room, it doesn't get down inside there. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing just like we did the other side. And there's like no room on the side, but you want to rotate this pointing upwards. You want to make sure that gap isn't on the side. So whether it be you point it down or to the top, it doesn't really matter. I do personally just like it having point towards the top, but given how little room you have here to work with, I can't really seem to, I'm probably not going to be able to get it turned all the way around. Take out the paper towels that you stuffed down in there. The base gasket probably will move around, so it's fine. Just make sure you set it back down. Cleaned out the cylinder. Didn't end up honing it. So I already cleaned this, but I bet there's still a little bit of dirt in here. So how you want to clean it, take some WD-40 and a nice little light towel like this. Wet it with the WD-40. And we go in here. Just rotate it around. just want to get the guide up through there. Then you want to take your piston. You can hold the cylinder. And what I like to do is I like to set one side down first with the gap, so we'll go on the compression side, and then I can actually compress this ring. And then we can just set it right down into place. Just like that. Fish your timing chain up. Just a touch. Make sure you have the copper washer on it. Get all caught up, but you can just move this piston up and down. Sure she's rotating smoothly. Because you put that assembly lube in there, you can actually see if there's any streaking of it, which could mean the ring's damaged or something else. You're going to see that on the sidewall here. So you just want to just look in there and make sure that there is none of that, which there isn't. So always want to make sure she's clean. We're going to put in the dowels. If you want, if you're doing a rebuild on an older bike, you can put a very thin layer of grease on there. Because this is so new and there's no signs of rust on these whatsoever, and they were not hard to pull out at all. I'm not doing it, but feed this thing through, just like that. Make sure this surface is very clean. I'm going to have to hit this with air again. Right into place. Get your dowel pins lined up. And there you go. From there, it's time to put the studs back into place, or the head bolts. You can just drop this thing on down in there. Make sure that you have the washer on there. And you can just kind of just hand thread them just to start them off in the threads, just to let this thing kind of sit level. So when you do tighten these up, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a crisscross pattern, so this thing will get tight evenly. Now we're going to torque these in a crisscross pattern to 37 foot-pounds. I usually like to go like, okay, we're at 5 there, we're gonna go like 5 foot-pounds all the way across, again, just to start her off, doing it in a crisscross pattern and evenly. With these, just because you wanna make sure you do not warp them, I do not like going all the way to the full torque spec right off the bat. Okay, now we're gonna go probably all the way to 30. Alright, so we're gonna tighten this thing back up. Again, it's like 7 foot-pounds, 89 inch-pounds. It's not a lot. Make sure she's tight. Then we can do the top two. Put a little bit of thread lock around there. Put her in there. Make sure you hold your timing chain. You want to make sure that this thing is on that mark right inside there. Make sure that mark is right there. That means she's at TDC. The other way that you can do this, if you want, that's just easier, but you can actually check in there and make sure that down the hole right there where the plug goes into, make sure that that piston is at top dead center. Lube on here. I just like to put some right there in the cam journals, keep them lubed up. And on here you're going to have your punch mark, which is right there. So you're going to set this in. You're going to take your chain off. You want to pull it all the way up. Make sure that it's tight on this side, right? Because on this side of your motor, where your actual tensioner is, the cam into place. And then you're going to want to check and see. I'm gonna pull up on this timing chain and set that right into place with that punch mark right at the top on this side, right there. That dot is supposed to be in between one of these links, but to actually have this flush with the surface with it on TDC, and from the markdown of the flywheel, it shows it not actually in between one of these links. It's actually kind of like right in between two links. So we're gonna count the pins. So starting from the one right now, it's actually pretty much right across, but the one closest to the bottom of this punch mark, I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, which is the one right below that mark. So that looks pretty much perfect. I'm just tightening up the cams with my finger down here. I like to, at least. And some of this is kind of just personal preference, but I like dabbing this up here. And you can just set this thing right on down. Make sure that your retainers are ready to be a little bit off right there with that. So these kind of silver goldish ones, these two bolts right here, those are the ones where your dowel pins are, just so you know. So, okay, so now we can go ahead and hand tighten or hand start them. We're gonna take the gun. We're just gonna run them down. These are numbered, if you want to come up here and look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you go 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's crisscross pattern. Tensioner. You want to reset it. You just push this thing right back in just like that. It'll hold it in place. Make sure your O-ring isn't torn or anything. Just put a little dab, and when I mean a dab, I mean a dab of semi-lube on here. Your tension width, it'll actually unset that, and this thing will automatically set the tension. So it's a spring with a little pin in it. Make sure that you have these two pieces together. You just put them right in the hole, and then you press down on this bolt, hollow bolt, and you can hear it click in. And it's tensioning your timing chain. Perfect. Okay. Again, now that that's tight, you want to come back up here and verify that your timing marks all are in alignment, which they are dead on perfect. Out, I like to just put a dab, and I mean a dab, I mean just a little bit on the threads, just to make it a little bit easier when you take these things out. They don't corrode in there. Put it around there, and then you can start, once you get it in the whole hand threading it. I like to just put a little bit of grease in here. Help keep the water out. Be crazy with the grease, but put a decent amount on there. Set this right on down. So bolt them down. I do like to just put a dab the thread locker on here. Even that's a little bit too much, so nice little trick. Just go just like that with threads. Get them on both, and then you can hand tighten them in there. Plugs back in now. They're all set. Then yep, just get these tight.